gentleman from New York, Mr. LaLota, for 5 minutes of testimony.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for hosting this important hearing. Secretary Mayorkas, during Mr. Garcia's questioning today, you claimed that 90% of fentanyl is carried through ports of entry, yet this comes a day after the chief of the Border Patrol, Jason Owens, announced the seizure of over 300 pounds of fentanyl, which was not seized at a port of entry. In fact, the Border Patrol seized a record number of fentanyl between ports of entry last year, about 2,800 pounds. Mr. Chairman, I would like to enter into the record Chief Owens' social media post regarding this week's fentanyl seizure. I'll read for you, Chairman.
Without objection, so ordered.
According to the CDC, over 150 people die every day from overdoses related to synthetic opioids like fentanyl. Yesterday, USPB agents in Nogales and Wilcox, Arizona, interdicted 2 smuggling loads consisting of over 304 pounds of fentanyl worth over $1.9 million. The leading cause of death amongst Americans ages 18 through 45 is fentanyl overdoses. This addictive drug is responsible for nearly 70% of the United States' 107,000 plus drug overdose deaths in the past year, and is 50 times stronger than heroin and 100 times stronger than morphine. Mr. Secretary, I think one of the biggest threats to Americans in every corner of this country is fentanyl. Do you agree, Secretary Mayorkas?
I do, Congressman. And I will tell you, if I may, that we are taking it to the traffickers.
We're going to get into that in a second, Mr. Secretary. Last year, nearly 200 people died every day from fentanyl poisoning. That's the equivalent of a commercial airliner crashing every day, nearly 75,000 Americans in just 1 year. And the fact that criminal networks have been able to import and distribute an unconscionable amount of fentanyl under your watch, Mr. Secretary, is beyond negligent. Secretary Mayorkas, you have stated many times in the past, and with great pride, that you are, quote, taking it to the cartels, end quote. With 75,000 Americans dead in just 1 year, and cartels raking in billions of dollars and armed to the teeth with military-like weaponry, and with enough fentanyl coming across our border to kill nearly every human on the planet, would you classify this as successfully, quote, taking it to the cartels, end quote?
Congressman, we have not overcome the scourge of fentanyl, and let me say this, we are taking it to an unprecedented degree to the traffickers. 1 death from this extraordinarily toxic and fatal opioid.
Are you pleased with your results, Mr. Secretary?
If I may, is 1 death.
Mr. Secretary, the question was about you taking it to the cartels. Are you pleased with your performance with respect to taking it to the cartels?
I'm incredibly proud of the work that the men and women of the Department of Homeland Security.
I appreciate that, Mr. Secretary. Reclaiming my time, sir. You've stated in past hearings that you've interdicted more fentanyl than ever before. But the very people who work for you say that you're only interdicting anywhere from between 5 and 10% at our ports of entry. Who's right, Mr. Secretary?
Do you realize, Congressman, that there were over 57,000 deaths, overdose deaths from fentanyl in the year 2020?
I appreciate the question. I'm going to ask you a question, though. Who's right? You or the folks who work for you? They're saying that you're massively understating the fentanyl that's being seized between ports of entry and that gets past our border between ports of entry and what you're saying. Are you right, sir, or are they?
No, you're actually mistaken with respect to your characterization of the statements, Congressman. I'd be very happy to clarify for you if you'd give me the opportunity. The fact that we are interdicting an unprecedented amount of fentanyl does not mean that the scourge of fentanyl is diminished. We are seeing an increase.
I'm going to reclaim my time, Mr. Secretary. With respect to the fentanyl that's coming across our border, not at ports of entry, how much fentanyl is coming across our border between ports of entry?
I'd be very happy to provide you with data with respect to the different means by which fentanyl enters our country. By air, we have an interdiction facility.
I'm familiar with the process, Mr. Secretary, but specifically, with respect to known gotaways, how much are they trafficking into our country?
Congressman, I would be very, very pleased to provide you with whatever data you inquire about. We certainly are providing this committee with a tremendous amount of data with respect to all of the mission sets that we perform.
I wish next time you would come with some more specific information, Mr. Secretary. But Mr. Chairman, with the remaining time I have, I want to shift gears and talk just for a moment about anti-Semitism on college campuses. New York State, my home state, is home to more than 2.2 million Jewish Americans, the largest population of Jewish Americans in the entire country. And according to the American Jewish Population Project at Brandeis University, over 21% of Jewish Americans live in New York State. Unfortunately, since the terrorist attacks in Israel on October 7th, many Jewish students, some of whom are my constituents, don't feel safe merely going to class due to the rise of anti-Semitism on college campuses. And as we're all well aware, a 21-year-old student at Cornell University, located in Ithaca, New York State, was arrested just 2 weeks ago for threatening to, quote, shoot up, end quote, a Jewish students in a predominantly kosher dining hall on that college campus. Thankfully, the federal law enforcement intercepted threats posted online and arrested him before it was too late. Director Wray, I'll ask you some questions in another setting, sir. Thanks so much for your time.
You can always submit those in writing and ask Director Wray to send them to you. The gentleman yields. I now recognize Ms.